For 20 Texas high school football teams, the dream of playing at AT&T Stadium will be realized this week. This is the 2022 Texas High School Football State Semifinals. These are the picks. Welcome into the picks, your guide to the Texas High School Football Weekend. My name is Greg Tepper of Dave Campbell's Texas Football and TexasFootball.com. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to the cruelest round of the Texas High School Football Playoffs. We're into the state semifinals. Every team playing this week is 48 minutes away from Arlington, from playing on the big stage at AT&T Stadium. And for 4 teams in the 6-man ranks, they've already punched their tickets. Congratulations to Westbrook and Abbott in the 1A Division I ranks, and congratulations to Lorain and Benjamin in the 1A Division II ranks. They are waiting to play at AT&T Stadium next week. 20 more teams will join them this week, and if you win this week, you're remembered forever. No matter what happens in Arlington, your name will be etched in history if you make it to AT&T Stadium. I'll give you a perfect example. Groover in 2018. Okay, the Greyhounds made it to AT&T Stadium and got smoked by Mart. Okay, it was a no contest. Mart ran away from them, but I remember 2018 Groover because they played in a state championship game. I have no idea who they beat in the semifinal. I'm not being facetious. I'm not doing this as a bit. I do not know who Groover beat in the semifinals. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to make our editor, Mallory Hartley, tell you who Groover beat in the semifinals. It's right here. This is who they beat. I didn't know that, because this is a history-making moment for these programs. An opportunity to play on the big stage and an opportunity to make it to their dream goal of playing for a state championship. 20 games across the state, 20 tickets to be punched at AT&T Stadium. We'll preview every one of them. We'll go smallest to largest. We start in Sweetwater. 7 o'clock Thursday night at the Mustang Bowl in Sweetwater. It's a 2A Division II state semifinal between the Albany Lions and the New Home Leopards. That's right. There's really only 2 Cinderellas left in the Texas High School Football Playoffs, and here is one of them. The Leopards of New Home have been absolutely spectacular and unstoppable. That upset win over Wellington last week was remarkable, especially considering they did it with a backup quarterback with Brazos Beck, but the defense forced 4 turnovers, came up with big plays at the big moment. They're going to need to be even better this week against Albany, who is looking every bit the part of a state champion right now. What they did last week to Collinsville was really impressive. The running game is really humming with Coyle Fever and Adam Hill. They are grinding it out, and the defense has been pretty darn good all year long. Now, New Home has faced high-powered offenses before and slowed them down. They'll need to play their best game and get a little magic on the offensive side. Make no mistake, Albany is the favorite here, but New Home does have a path. I like the Lions. I think they make it to AT&T Stadium. 7 o'clock Thursday night at Reeves Stadium in Round Rock. It's a 2A Division II state semifinal between the Mart Panthers and the Burton Panthers. And if you go back to last year in the state semifinals, this is when the big stunner happened, when Mart fell to Fall City as the Beavers made it to AT&T Stadium. And in many ways, there are some parallels between that Fall City team and this Burton team, especially defensively, because this defense for Burton has been spectacular. They've allowed just 7 points through their first 4 playoff games. Defenseman Carson Louder has been unbelievable. Their defense certainly leads the way. Have they faced an offense like they're going to see against Mart? If you go back last week, we were talking about Mart and Lovelady, 2 of the most dominant teams in the state of Texas, right? Yeah, Mart beat them by 50. Yeah, it's been unbelievable. Jonah Ross, their quarterback, and J.D. Bell running the ball. They have outstanding balance to their offense. They have outstanding breakaway speed. They are dangerous, and make no mistake, their defense is exceptional as well. Burton's defense is elite. It is good enough on its own to win this game single-handedly, but they've got to keep the score low. I am not sure their offense is capable of keeping up with Mart's score for score. So this game has got to stay in the, I would say, the low 20s if Burton's going to pull this out. In the end, I think the explosive playmakers from Mart are too much. I think they come up with a few big plays to break through this outstanding Burton defense. I think Mart makes it back to AT&T Stadium. 7 o'clock Thursday night at Ram Stadium in Mineral Wells. It's a 2A Division I state semifinal between the Crawford Pirates and the Hawley Bearcats. And we've reached the 2A Division I state semifinals. And I got to be honest, this might be the bracket where the 2 semifinals are the hardest to split, because these are really evenly matched games, in my opinion. We'll start with this Hawley and Crawford game. Hawley last week Woo! Really impressive in their win over Cisco. Remember, that was a rematch of a game that was a 3-point contest in district play. Not so this time around. They ran away from the Lobos. The defense was excellent with Hez Parker and Will Scott leading the way. And, of course, that offense continues to hum. I think the progression of quarterback Rhodey Hooper as a passer has really opened up this offense. And running back Austin Compton is running with purpose. They were exceptional last week. They're taking on this Crawford team that went up against one of the hottest offenses in the state of Texas and shut them down in Toller. 14-7 was the win, and they were relentless defensively, absolutely bottling up that big high-powered Rattlers attack. And then the offense came along with just what they needed with Luke Torbert. Now, I think there's going to be a low-scoring slugfest because I think both defenses are playing exceptional. So how do you split these two teams? I think Hawley is a little bit deeper. I think they are a little bit more battle-tested, and I think they're a little healthier. That, I think, is the real difference in this one. Make no mistake, this is a coin flip game, but I think Hawley is headed back to AT&T Stadium. 6 o'clock Thursday night at Cy-Fair FCU Stadium in Cypress. It's a 2A Division I state semifinal between the Refugio Bobcats and the Timpson Bears. And, okay, yeah, the hits keep on coming this week, guys. This is going to be an unbelievable week of games, and this might be the real showcase here on Thursday night. Refugio won another instant classic last week against Shiner, hitting a big play late to topple the defending 2A Division I state champs, two-time defending 2A Division I state champs, and they look like they're on a mission. I think Isaiah Bland, their running back, has been fantastic. They match up so well up front, and their defense has really been solid from the word go. They've got superstars all over the field. Speaking of superstars, Terry Bussey. If you've not seen the Terry Bussey show for Timpson, you are missing out. This is one of the most dynamic players in the state of Texas hard stop at any classification. He is unbelievable, and he continues to put on a show each and every week. He did it last week against Cooper in their regional final win. I think a lot of this game is going to come down to the supporting cast. I think it's going to be up to guys like LT Washington and Bosky Howard to have big games as well. Keep in mind, this semifinal, Region 3 versus Region 4 in 2A Division I, absolutely dominated by Region 4 of late. They've won 9 in a row over their Region 3 brethren. You got to go back to 2012 when Mart won a 2A Division I regional final, state semifinal rather, in order to find the last time Region 3 beat Region 4. This game was close last year with Timpson losing to Shiner. The gap has definitely closed a little bit. But in the end, I think this Refugio defense is the difference. I think that the Bobcats have the superior defense. That's going to come up with 1 or 2 extra stops in what promises to be a fantastic ball game. I think this game is going to be a lot of fun, but I think Refugio is headed for Arlington. 6 o'clock Friday night at Wildcat Stadium in Abilene. It is a 3A Division II state semifinal between the Canadian Wildcats and the Gunner Tigers for the 6th time. That's right. For the 6th time in 7 years, these two teams will meet up in the state semifinals. And what can you say about these two teams in their respective divisions, at this point? I mean, since 2014, Canadian is 33-1 against Region 1 opponents. Unbelievable, 33-1. Gunner in that span is 32-2. These two teams have been absolutely dominant within their own region, and that is what brings us Volume 6 of what has been a pretty remarkable rivalry between these two programs that I know have a lot of respect for one another. Canadian romped through Region 1 once again. They made short work of Wall last week. Cameron Cavalier, their quarterback, he is in his bag. Woo! This kid is pretty special and is capable of taking them back to AT&T Stadium. The defense has been on point as well. Speaking of defenses on point, Gunner last week against Holiday, spectacular, holding them under 150 yards of total offense on the whole, and then hitting some big plays with guys like Cannon Lemberg, their quarterback Walker Overman. They run the ball well with Ethan Sloan. This is a more diverse, I think, offense for Gunner this year, which makes them even more dangerous. So again, how do you split these two teams? They've played some absolute classics. I would expect another one in this one. The reason I like Gunner is because I think that they are a little bit more battle-tested. I think they've played a little bit of a tougher schedule running through Region 2. And furthermore, I do think that they're going to have the ability to hit 1 or 2 plays late in this game to win it. I think this is a one-score game, figures to be another instant classic, and I think it's going to be pretty low scoring, so points are going to be at a premium. But I do think Gunner is heading back to AT&T Stadium. 7 o'clock Friday night at Cy-Fair FCU Stadium in Cyprus. It is a 3A Division II state semifinal between the Harmony Eagles and the Poth Pirates in what is, with all due respect, the strangest semifinal of the year. I don't think anybody had this on their bingo card. Poth was our preseason pick to win Region 4, and we got that right, but they're still in a state semifinal for the first time since 1969, which is pretty remarkable, and they have been grinding it out, have some wars against Bowling and against Tidehaven last week. They have been winning these battles in close quarters, and a lot of it has to do with an outstanding playmaking defense, forced 4 turnovers last week, and Zane Raby, their quarterback. They lean on him to run the ball a lot. Harmony... I don't know. Harmony started the year 60th in our preseason computer rankings. Harmony started the year 0-4. There's no reason Harmony should be here except they forgot they were supposed to lose. They have such belief within that program right now. It is unbelievable what they've been able to do, and a lot of it comes back to quarterback Boston Seahorn. He has been a warrior for them, really leading this rushing attack for them. They ask a lot of him, and he comes up aces every time. Last week against Newton, he was spectacular. Every team likes to say, oh, nobody believed in us. Nobody believed in this Harmony team. And now they're 48 minutes away from one of the most improbable state championship berths ever. Now, how does this game match up? I think these two teams are actually looking in a mirror. They're both pretty physical, and they are both going to run the ball a lot with their quarterback. So this game's going to come down to defense. Which team can come up with the key stop at the key moment? I think Poth's your favorite. But I also think there's something more dangerous than a really good team. And that's a really hot team. I think Harmony is the hottest team in Texas, and I think they're making it to AT&T Stadium. Give me the Eagles. 7 o'clock Friday night at the Ford Center in Frisco. It is a 3A Division I state semifinal between the Brock Eagles and the Malakoff Tigers. And you know, for two teams that finished the year ranked in our top 7 of 3A Division I, these teams have had a fair number of doubters, I think. You know, for Brock, they started the year 0-4, and I think there are a fair number of people, myself included, who thought that Whitesboro would get them the second time around. But no such luck for the Bearcats, as Brock came out with a gritty, real gutsy win over the Bearcats last week, and did so with Reed Watkins leading the way and their quarterback Tyler Moody, and their defense coming up with some really key stops down the stretch. For Malakoff, I think that the doubters came from the fact that they would have to run to Grandview again. And Grandview's kind of been the team that's just had their number. But finally, Malakoff was able to get over that hump, get past the Zebras, and into a state semifinal. And they're looking very, very good, running the ball with Jason Tennyson and Damian Jackson leading the way on the ground. There is some history between these two teams. Brock and Malakoff met back in 2018 at this very building there at the Ford Center. And Malakoff upset Brock to make it to the state championship game. Can Brock return the favor? I think right now you've got two teams whose defenses are playing the best they have all year long, and that is why I think this is going to be a relatively low scoring game. But I think Brock is playing their best football at the moment offensively as well, with Tyler Moody and Reed Watkins leading the way. I think the running game gets it done. I think they're able to grind it out and come up with big plays defensively. I think Brock heads back to AT&T Stadium. 7 o'clock Thursday night at Legacy Stadium in Katy. It is a 3A Division I state semifinal between the Edna Cowboys and the Franklin Lions. And, well, you can't say Franklin doesn't have a knack for the dramatic. Last week in their war against Columbus, they come up with the game-winning touchdown run on 4th down from Bryson Washington with just 27 seconds remaining to extend their winning streak to 30 in a row. And it's not just they've won 30 in a row. They've been pretty dominant. That was just their third one-score victory in those 30 wins. So they have had a way of running away from people. Jaden Jackson, the running back, alongside Bryson Washington, and that defense, the speed for this team is really overwhelming. Going up against this Edna team that left no doubt last week against Llano, they were very clearly the better team, and Jaden Clay, their do-it-all quarterback, has been great, but the real star of this Edna team are the big boys up front. The offensive line, which has been massive and pushing people around, and the defensive line, led by Christopher Robinson, which was absolutely spectacular last week against Llano. In many respects, this is a classic Region 3 versus Region 4 game. Region 3 is the speed region. Region 4 is the muscle region. These two teams going at it. And so what happens when that comes about? I think if you are Edna, you want to grind it out, go on long scoring drives, and try to keep the ball away from Franklin. But I think in the end, the speed and the scheme are going to be a little bit of an advantage here for this Franklin attack. I think they make it back to defend their crown at AT&T Stadium. 7 o'clock Friday night at the Star in Frisco. It is a 4A Division II state semifinal between the Carthage Bulldogs and the Glen Rose Tigers. Glen Rose, the champions of Region 1, and that offense is something else, buddy. 655 yards total offense last week in their romp over Monahans, and I love this quarterback, Hudson White. This kid's a baller out there, in complete command of this offense. He can run it, he can throw it, he can do everything. They can run the ball as well with Brolio Silva, but make no mistake, this Tigers team goes as Hudson White goes, and lately he's been going good. Okay, so the Carthage machine is online, though, and things have been really good for Carthage the last 2 weeks. Think about this. They beat Gilmer and Pleasant Grove, who finished the year ranked number 2 and number 7 in our rankings, respectively. They beat them each by 21 points. That is dangerous stuff. And yes, the offense is a lot of fun to watch with KD Matlock, their running back, as well as their quarterback Connor Cuff. But the real star of the show is the defense, led by Deontay Mary at the linebacker spot. I think that is what's going to be the difference in this ball game. For Glen Rose to pull the upset, I think their defense is going to have to play the game of their life. Plain and simple, because I think that Carthage is not going to give up many points in this ball game, even as good as that Glen Rose offense is. Because I do think that Carthage has seen a team like Glen Rose before. I'm not so sure Glen Rose has seen a team like Carthage. So I like the Bulldogs to make it back to AT&T Stadium. 3 o'clock Friday afternoon at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. It's a 4A Division II state semifinal between the Wimberley Texans and the Cuero Gobblers. These two teams actually know each other really well. It's the 8th meeting in the playoffs between these two since 2004. You know, as I was writing the script for this video, I actually was struck by the fact that we probably haven't given Wimberley enough credit this year. Remember, this is a program that lost their star quarterback to a transfer before the season started, and all they've done is rattle off an undefeated season and make it to the state semifinals, right? This team has been terrific. Running back Johnny Ball has been very strong, and this new quarterback, Cody Stover, has stepped up in a huge way there at the quarterback spot. Their defense, as it usually is under Doug Warren, has been very, very good of late. Cuero survived one of the wildest games of the year last week against Silsbee in a triple overtime thriller, leaning on the leadership of Tyson Williams, their running back, and their quarterback Mason Notaro. That defense is going to have to be better this week if they're going to get past this Wimberley team. It's kind of hard to split these two teams. There's a couple of advantages I give to Cuero, though. One, I'm not sure Wimberley has seen the type of speed that Cuero is going to bring to this game. That's one thing. The other thing is that I think on a fast track, that speed is going to be exacerbated. Being indoors is an advantage for Cuero in this game. The Wimberley defense is fully capable of taking over this game, but they've got to find matchups that they can exploit, and they're going to need a big game from their quarterback, Cody Stover. I think this game is going to be a lot of fun, and I think this is a one-score game. But I think the Gobblers are headed for Arlington. Give me Cuero. 7:30 p.m. Friday night at Vernon Newsom Stadium in Mansfield. It is a 4A Division I state semifinal between the Decatur Eagles and the China Spring Cougars. We talk all the time about teams that are playing their best football right now, peaking at the right time. I don't know if there's a program in the state that embodies that better than Decatur. This is a team that under first-year coach Steve Huff started 0-3, and I think some people, maybe like me, was ready to throw dirt on them. But they've rattled off 11 straight, and a lot of the reason why is Nate Palmer, their running back, who has been just terrific during these playoffs. He has hit another gear here in the postseason, and when you add in quarterback Preston Escobar, they have been a hard combo to stop. Give a lot of credit to that defense as well, which was very good last week against Wichita Falls. China Spring survived the rough and tumble Region 2, and their offense with quarterback Cash McCollum kind of goes without saying. They've been excellent, but I think the difference has been their defense, which has been so strong this year with Tristan Exline. Here's the matchup to watch, right? Decatur has to run the ball to win this game. I think if they are one-dimensional and they make Preston Escobar do too much, that is a huge advantage for China Spring. So I think China Spring is going to load the box with their defense and try to slow down this Decatur running game and make this Decatur offense much more one-dimensional. That is the real key in this one. Can Decatur run the ball with Nate Palmer? The other side of it, I do think, is where China Spring has an advantage. Their offense with their explosive playmakers, especially led by quarterback Cash McCollum. I think that is going to be the difference in what should be a nip-and-tuck affair. I think this game is close. It's one of the hardest games to call, but I do think that China Spring heads back to AT&T Stadium to defend their crown. 7 o'clock Friday night at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. It's a 4A Division I state semifinal between the Tyler Chapel Hill Bulldogs and the Bernie Greyhounds. And this, to me, is another real classic Region 3 versus Region 4 affair. You've got the faster team going up against the bigger team. That's not to say that the other teams don't have those things. Bernie's got plenty of speed, and I think that Chapel Hill's a pretty physical team themselves, but that's where their advantages are going to lie. For Chapel Hill, I think they're the faster team in this game because I think they're the fastest team in 4A Division I. I think the playmakers they've got have been absolutely unbelievable. Quarterback Demetrius Brisbane is a burner, as well as their running back Ricky Stewart. And they're just a whole track team back there. And their defense flies to the football as well. They are relatively young, and they can be prone to kind of brain farts and kind of putting the ball on the ground. They've got to be clean in this ball game against a Bernie team that is locked and loaded and ready for the state semifinal. Jackson Bays, their quarterback, has been terrific. TJ Dement, their running back, is kind of hard-charging running back, and they are the bigger team. They're going to have the advantage as far as size is concerned in the trenches. So how do you split these two teams? I mean, this is the true coin flip game, and you can go, one thing for Chapel Hill is that this game is indoors. That is going to be an advantage for them on a fast track. But for Bernie, this is a much shorter drive for them. They're going to be right down the road, basically, in San Antonio, whereas Chapel Hill has to make a long drive. So I think this game is a coin flip, plain and simple. This was one of the hardest games to call, but in the end, I look at the team with the explosive playmakers and the speed. Speed is, I think, going to be the difference maker in this one. That's where Chapel Hill has the advantage. I think they make one extra play, and that puts them over the top. I think Chapel Hill is headed for the state championship game. 7:30 p.m. Friday night at Crowley ISD Stadium in Fort Worth. It is a 5A Division II state semifinal between the South Oak Cliff Golden Bears and the Argyle Eagles. Remember at the beginning of the year when we wondered how Argyle was going to adjust to 5A? Just fine, thank you. Undefeated regional champions, and they are rolling. This is not a star-studded Argyle team, but they are so rock solid everywhere, and especially up front defensively. Michael Madry and Riley Van Poppel have been terrific, and then they run the ball really well with Landon Ferris and RJ Bunnell. They are a grinding, maybe even plodding team, but they grind you into dust, and they're so good in the trenches, and the defense comes up with big plays. South Oak Cliff is also a team that likes to outmuscle people. Their offensive line has been terrific. They are a star-studded team on the defensive side, especially with Malik Muhammad and Javon Thomas recently back from injury. But make no mistake, their offense has started to get it going because they've committed to the run. Danny Green has been very good running the ball for them, and that big offensive line has gone to work. What's so interesting about this game, is that these are two teams that really want to outmuscle you, right? And they've been pretty good at outmuscling their opponent all year long. So what happens when they meet? That's going to be a fascinating matchup. In the end, I give the advantage to South Oak Cliff. One, because they're defending state champion, and I think that the champion's advantage really does matter. And two, because I think they've got the more explosive playmakers that are able to break the big play and run away from this Argyle defense. I think this game is close and has an opportunity to be an instant classic, but I think the South Oak Cliff Golden Bears make it to the AT&T Stadium. 7 o'clock Friday night at Legacy Stadium in Katy. It is a 5A Division II state semifinal between the Port Neches Groves Indians and the Liberty Hill Panthers. I've said this a couple times during the video, but this is where I really mean it. This is the hardest semifinal to call for me because it's such a strange matchup and such an interesting dynamic at play with a variety of different factors. Liberty Hill's offense has been on fire of late, with Ben Carter and Reese Vickers leading the way of a 550-yard assault last week in their win over Corpus Christi Flower Bluff. And that was after a freak play where they lost their top two running backs on the same play. Yeah, it's wild, but the offense has been humming along, and Coach Kent Walker has got the slot T absolutely at full speed. Port Neches Groves is the party crasher here. They were not supposed to be here. They avenged a 21-point loss to Fort Bend Marshall in district play by returning the favor with a 29-21 win in the playoffs. Quarterback Shea Adams was a star in that game, and their defense put the lid on what had been a high-powered Fort Bend Marshall attack. And so there's so many questions about this game heading into it. Can Port Neches Groves, with first-year coach Jeff Joseph, a defensive guru in his own mind, can they find a way to diagnose the slot team? Right? That's one question. Will Liberty Hill's injuries hurt them in this game? Can Liberty Hill's defense make some plays? Because the last couple of weeks, they've kind of been lit up a little bit. There's so many things to factor in here, and that's what makes this the hardest game to call of the week. In the end, I think that Port Neches Groves' offense is going to be able to make some hay against this Liberty Hill defense, and that's going to be the difference. I think it's actually a high-scoring shootout, but I think Port Neches Groves makes an unlikely trip to AT&T Stadium. 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon at Kincaid Stadium in Dallas. It's a 5A Division I state semifinal between the Aledo Bearcats and the Longview Lobos, and yeah, this is pretty heavy stuff here, which is what you come to expect from a state semifinal. Aledo looking for their record 11th state championship. They romped through Region 1, have looked spectacular last week against Burleson Centennial. Ran out to a 21-0 lead, let Centennial come back and tie it before rattling off the final 21. And quarterback House Haney, this kid, special. He's really grown into the role. We had some questions about where they're going to get their playmakers from. They found him in House Haney, and whenever they need a big play, he just takes off and runs with it, and he's borderline unstoppable. Longview got dragged into a street fight last week against Mansfield Timberview and came out on top. The big hog mollies up front got the job done. Running back Taylor Tatum is the straw that stirs the drink. He really is for this team, and when you add in they've got a big-time playmaker on the outside in Jalen Hale, they are a dangerous offense to stop, and their defense has been very good. Now, Longview, the past couple of weeks have started slow. They cannot do that this week against Aledo because Aledo will pounce on them and make them pay for any mistakes that they make. But I think that Longview has the edge here because of the individual playmakers they've got on the outside and their ability to match up front against Aledo, which I don't think many teams can do. That's the path to beating Aledo. You got to match up front and then hit a couple big plays on the outside. I think Longview can do this in a very close game, but I think that the Lobos make it to AT&T Stadium. 5 o'clock Saturday evening at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. It is a 5A Division I state semifinal between the Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial Eagles and the College Station Cougars. And it's a matchup of two teams I think keep defying expectations will now match up for a spot at AT&T Stadium. You know, Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial I think was overshadowed in Region 4 for a lot of the year. A part of it is because you have these two teams from the Rio Grande Valley and what a great story they were with PSJ North and Edinburgh Vela. Another part of it is Corpus Christi Miller, their district bunkmate, is more flashy. Right? They've got more big-time playmakers. Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial is not flashy, but they are a bunch of winners, plain and simple. They find a way. Luke Jackson leads a defense that has been very strong for them all year long. Quarterback Elijah Durrett has been great, and they run the ball very well with guys like Jaden Castaneda. College Station, it's important to remember, let's not do any revisionist history here. They were left for dead in Week 1. Plain and simple. They lose Marquise Collins, their running back, right, for the year. They, of course, have a new coach in Stoney Pryor taking over, and they lose their Week 1 matchup with Lovejoy, and I think a lot of us are like, all right, well, that's it, done and dusted for College Station. But they are back at a state semifinal, thanks in large part to the guys who have stepped up in their stead. Arrington Maiden, their quarterback, has been very strong. This new running back, Aiden Martinez-Brown, has picked up the load in a big way, and their defense stands on its head. What they did last week against Smithson Valley, 7 stops inside the 5-yard line to win the game. Are you kidding me? That is spectacular in a lot of ways. Now, for Corpus Christi Vets, I think that they want to turn this into a street fight. I think a low-scoring slugfest is going to be the way that they can win this game. Lean on that defense, because I'm not sure they've seen, at least since they played Miller, they have not seen a team with the kind of athletes that they have up against them on the other side of the field. So I think this game is going to be very interesting. A lot of this also comes down to the fourth quarter. Who has more left in the tank? These guys have gone through some wars to get here. Who has more in the tank in the fourth quarter? I lean towards College Station because I think they have a couple of more individual playmakers that are going to be able to break out some big plays. I think College Station gets the win in a close one. Give me the Cougars. 2 o'clock Saturday at the Ford Center in Frisco. It's a 6A Division II state semifinal between the DeSoto Eagles and the Denton Guyer Wildcats. And yeah, if you're looking for star power, do I have the game for you? Goodness gracious. The number of playmakers that are going to be on the field at the Star in Frisco on Saturday is shocking. Really and truly. Jackson Arnold, Jonte Cook, Trey Weisner, Peyton Bowen, Tiger Ryden, Landon Sides. It goes on and on and on. Unbelievable, the playmakers that are going to be on the field. And that is, by the way, just like a short list of the stars in this game. These two offenses are hitting on all cylinders right now. Two teams that combined for a combined nearly 1,200 yards of total offense last week. DeSoto in their win over Killeen Harker Heights. Guyer in their win over South Lake Carroll. This game is going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be points to be had. The key matchup for me in this game is going to be the Denton Guyer offense on third down, specifically when they give the ball to Jackson Arnold to take off and run. That has been pretty much an unstoppable play for Geyer this year. That whenever they need big plays in critical situations, they turn to Arnold on the ground. It's going to be up to Brandon Booker and this DeSoto linebacker core to snuff that out. I think this game is going to be fun. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think this game is going to be worth the price of admission. I think Geyer's defense is the difference. They have a knack for the big play, and they have the single individual best defensive playmaker on the field in Peyton Bowen. I think that's the difference. I think the Wildcats head back to AT&T Stadium. 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. It's a 6A Division II state semifinal between the Katy Tigers and the Austin Vandegrift Vipers. It's Houston versus Austin in a matchup of two teams that really pride themselves on defense. Now, last week, Katy's defense got touched up to the tune of 477 yards passing against Houston C.E. King, and that has got to be concerning. Of course, it didn't matter because Seth Davis, their running back, went nuts with 6 touchdown runs. He and Dallas Glass, I think, are the most dangerous backfield running back duo in the state. And they are the get out of jail free card. When you need a play, you turn to one of those two guys and they take off with it. Vandegrift avenged their only loss of the year when they were able to hold on against Dripping Springs last week. And if there are plays to be made against the Katy secondary, this is a offense that can take advantage of it. Braden Buchanan, their quarterback, and wide receiver Miles Coleman, can they exploit that defense? Furthermore, can this Vandegrift front hold up against this offensive line for Katy and the running game that they are going to employ? In the end, I don't think Katy's going to put together 2 lackluster defensive performances in a row, plain and simple. I expect a bounce-back game from the Tigers. I think the running game gets going. I think they're able to hit a couple big plays, come up with a couple of turnovers to hold off a feisty Vipers squad. I think Katy is headed for Arlington. 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon at Ford Stadium in Dallas. It is a 6A Division I state semifinal between the Duncanville Panthers and the Prosper Eagles. If there's such a thing as an under-the-radar 6A state semifinalist, Prosper is it. Like, that's the team. What they did last week against Louisville defensively was really impressive. Coach Brandon Schmidt is a defensive guru, and it showed last week, able to hold down an explosive Louisville attack. And then they got their quarterback, Harrison Rosar, going and got a couple of big plays from him to pull away with a win. Duncanville had some trouble last week against Spring Westfield, got into a bit of a dogfight, but they turned to Caden Durham, their running back, and he was a star, running for 4 touchdowns. Can that offense kind of get its gears going? I think this whole game comes down to one matchup, and that is the Prosper offensive line against the Duncanville defensive front. Can Prosper give Harrison Rosar time to throw? Can they get anything going on the ground? They need to be balanced because one-dimensional teams are not going to beat this defense led by Colin Simmons in Duncanville. And in the end, I think that the running game for Duncanville is going to be the difference. I think they're going to be able to make a couple of big plays, break a couple of big runs, and pull away with a win. I think this game is close into the fourth quarter, but I think Duncanville is headed for the state championship game. And 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon at Rice Stadium in Houston, it's a 6A Division I state semifinal between the Galena Park North Shore Mustangs and the Austin Westlake Chaparrals. It's a matchup of the defending state champs in 6A. It is a title unification bout, if you will. It is the main event. Make no mistake, this is the biggest game of state semifinal weekend. So my son Hank turned 4 on Saturday. Happy birthday, Hank. And I realized that in his life, Westlake is 60-2. 60 wins and 2 losses. Remarkable consistency from what is now has to be considered the flagship program of Texas high school football at the moment, the winners of 3 consecutive state championships. Now, there are some concerns on the offensive side right now. Coach Tony Salazar has played a little bit of musical quarterbacks, turned to Brett Skinner last week in their win over San Antonio Brennan. Jaden Greathouse, their star wide receiver, did not play with an apparent hamstring issue. We will see what happens this week. Of course, they were able to run the ball with Jack Kaiser, and there is no doubt that their defense is elite. Absolutely elite, led by defensive end Colton Vasek. For Galena Park North Shore to be here with their backup quarterback is pretty remarkable, plain and simple. And what do you say about Coach John Kay and his staff at this point? Now, it helps that their backup quarterback is David Amador. Touchdown Dave has been unbelievable back there, and I do think they've figured out exactly how to kind of shape the offense with him back there at the quarterback spot. Of course, it helps to have guys like DeAndre Hardiman back there, Rashad Johnson. They're able to run the ball exceptionally well with that big offensive line, and their defense, led with Javen Anderson, has been excellent as well. So what do you do with this game? I mean, This is a classic pick'em game, plain and simple. We're finally going to get an answer of what happens when the Westlake fronts meet the North Shore fronts, which have both been so dominant, because that is the real, for all the playmakers we talk about, the real strengths of these teams are in the trenches, both on the offensive line and the defensive line. The reason I'm going with Westlake is because I think that the defense is going to be able to key on what is still a relatively limited North Shore offense. They run the ball really well, but can they throw the ball when it matters? I think a one-dimensional team against Westlake's defense is going to be problematic. That's why I think Westlake extends their winning streak to 55, and I think they head back to AT&T Stadium. And those are the picks. That's it. I picked all 20 Texas high school football state semifinals this week, so now you can let me know, what am I wrong about? Leave comments down below. Don't forget that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at DCTF. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Dave Campbell. Follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/Dave Campbell. And of course, see us at texasfootball.com, where you can find complete coverage of the 2022 Texas High School Football Playoffs at texasfootball.com/playoffs. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the state semifinals of the Texas High School Football Playoffs. We'll see you.